5 million gallons a day.
So you're saying those two little plants you have, so everything that flushes
Everything
has to go to one of those plants?
correct.
How do you get enough volume that just doesn't plug up while you're walking?
Danny Glover, huh? Yeah, I met him yesterday.
Who?
Danny Glover, he was at in Olympia.
He was where?
He was in Olympia for African American Legislative Day.
Ah, very good.
Talking to youth and, asked him if he gets like lethal weapon questions.
I'll call the meeting to order. We will go to executive session for potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-1101I. B, property acquisition pursuant to RCW 4230-1101B. And evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment pursuant to RCW 4230-1101G. We are in recess for that purpose. Every slice of paper. All right. I'll reconvene the special meeting that we reconvened earlier. We just finished executive session, and pursuant to the items that I read off before and on the agenda. Now it's time for the study session. We've got a revenue options 2018 budget adjustment. First, we'll have a staff report from our finance director, Ariwoola. Then we'll have council discussions and questions and citizen comment. It's not on the agenda. Well, we'll do it for the main meeting. We'll do the flag salute. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll do the flag salute for the main meeting. Aday, please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor, Council. This is just to do a little bit of a breakdown on where we are regarding 2018 budget. So I will give you a little bit of a background, show you some of the adjustments that need to be done, and try to explain how we got here, and also to show you what is ahead for the city and how we need to resolve some of these issues. A little bit of a background. If you remember, December 6, 2016, the council adopted 2017-2018 biennium budget. In that budget, we did not fully fund equipment replacement. So that means what that really translates to, we couldn't fund the entire operation with the operating revenue as of the time that we approved 2017 and 2018 budget. Included in the 2017 budget was 4 police officers, and for 2018, 5 police officers. At the time that that budget was approved, the city was supposed to levy transportation benefit district levy and levy admission tax. We did not do the TBD. So that means part of the money that will have funded the police officers, we did not have that in. We did 2017 budget adjustment public hearing November 7, 2017. And we also did the first reading of that amendment in November 21st, 2017. And the second reading and the final adoption of our 2017 adjustment was made December 5th, 2017. So that just gives you a little bit of a background of what happened before we got here. For the 2018 budget adjustment, when we started this process, actually the initial request from your directors to amend 2018, going by this number, the original budget for general fund was $48,850,000. The request, in order for them to do what you charged them to do, was additional $2,330,000. If we had done that, that would have resulted in using $1.5 million of the general fund. So we work with them. No, we can't have this. No, you can't have that if we do this. So they reduced that request, were able to reduce that request down a great deal, where instead of a negative $1.5 million, it turned out to be just $400,000. We did the same thing with street, the same thing with the Federal Way Community Center, traffic fund, and the same thing with Performing Arts Center. So what we bring to you is not a wish list. It's what we've went through and tried to cut through the bone and slash as much as we can. So this is after, and again, your directors have done all of these, and most of you council members will also vouch for that. We've increased the acreage for our parks. We haven't filled position up to where they were before recession. And that is just an example. So the 850,000 that we're short in 2018 is after painstaking exercise of saying, well, no, you can't do that. Let's reduce this. Let's move this around to be able to have that 850,000. So the mayor and your directors have gone through a painstaking process to get to this point. Why do we have this much request? Additional request from SCORE is $680,000. That will bring the bill that we're paying them to close to $7 million.
Ade, can you explain for folks in the crowd and folks listening on TV what SCORE is?
Okay. SCORE is a South County correction facility. We are one of the 5 owners of the SCORE facility. And that is where we put our prisoners. You know, the city have a right, or we have 70 beds in there. Again, this is part of our safety and security of people. That is where these people are housed. We have Auburn, SeaTac, Renton, that are part of this group that owns SCORE.
So just in 1 year, the cost for our jail services went up $680,000.
That is just an increment for 1 year.
All right, Councilmember Copeland, did you have something?
You know, I think one point that bears mentioning is that our daily prisoner costs are down substantially from when we were using King County as our service provider.
Correct.
So our actual costs for prisoners would be much higher if we didn't have the SCORE facility to utilize.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that is just one of them. I have parks, which is a 250,000. A portion of that is due to the increase in minimum wages. Again, having some temp in there, because, and also, if you remember about a year ago, we acquired an equipment to be able to take care of our turf, where they will sand fill or they'll put sand or stuff to be able to maintain the turf. You know, also included in these is that annual supply of sand to be able to maintain the field. If we do not, it will fail. Then we'll end up having to replace the entire sod for close to $750,000. So we'll pay about $70,000 a year to maintain, you know, some of this field, and that is part of why we acquire the equipment last year. The same thing, Public Works, about $160,000. That also, a portion of that is intended to pay, just a small portion of it, to pay the increase in minimum wages for the temporary employees, and also to add supplies for them. CD downtown development, I think last year, the council decided that as part of a downtown development, we want to spend about $100,000 on a consultant to be able to help with downtown development. That is what that is. And of course, part of the underfunding of the equipment replacement reserve for 2018 is the $360,000. So that is how, from general fund, so that is part of what account for the trouble that we're in now. As I said, how did we get here? Biennium budget for 2017 was approved without fully funding equipment replacement the 360 that I just pointed out. And again, the score ADP, just to fund incarceration of our prisoners.
ADP stands for Average Daily Population.
An increase in labor cost, retain and attract capable staff. We've come to you, many times in the last year that we're filling this position because somebody left, and our colleagues of city in the area pay more than the city of Federal Way. And that is why they're able to attract our employees away. And that will continue. What is ahead for us? The city of Federal Way incorporated more than 27 years ago. Since then, we know that we need to hire more staff to keep up with workload in the parks, community development, public works, IT, police, and municipal court. The average FTE, or the employees that most of our departments have today, are just a little bit, actually, are below the pre-recession. The number of staff that most of our departments have today are below the pre-recession number of employees that they had. So what that means is you have employees doing more than they used to. And actually, that is why Federal Way employees are more attractive someplace else. I attended an economic development breakfast in Bellevue about 2 weeks ago. And there was a discussion among a couple of other people. And they said they found employees from Federal Way more willing because they are well-trained and they are underpaid. That is the discussion at the economic development breakfast in Bellevue. So, yes, we're training our employees because we're spreading them among so many tasks, but because we're not able to pay what our colleagues are paying, it is easy to recruit them. We have employees that have gone to even Sound Transit or Lake Haven or Kent. So we have employees living to move other places. Our buildings are getting old. City Hall roof, elevator, exterior paint, and HVAC, they all need to be replaced. They will need work in no time. The community center pole slide will need to be replaced in a few years. And actually, that will be part of what we will take to FedRAC probably next month. Even though the slide is fixed, it's only good for a couple of years.
Councilmember Duclos?
Do we have a reserve policy that we set up for all of these different things, certain amount of money put away each year to repair equipment loss and things like that?
Yes, we have reserve. But if I keep going on this list,
Yeah.
you'll realize that the staff won't cut it by the time we're done. Yes, we do have reserve, and that is part of why, if you remember, last year, I revised that reserve up a little bit. But just so that the citizens at home do not misunderstand this, most of the money that we will put into reserve for this are now money that you can spend on employees. So what I'm doing, or what we're doing, is putting some of REIT money, which are intended for infrastructure and construction alone.
REIT money, everybody, is real estate excise tax
Tax
money. It can
money.
only be used for capital purposes.
Right.
So at some point, I think the last 3 years have been really good for real estate sales. At some point, we will have to put more money into this reserve to be able to maintain all this building. I'm not even saying to modernize them. Well, just replacing the roof at the city hall would not be modernizing. It's just making it functioning. So we saw, and I think Director John Hutton shared with the council, I think in December, the condition of the water slide is temporarily fixed. And what we would need to do is pull out that slide out. If we think fixing that slide for us, you know, even though it is safe now, but if we don't start thinking about how we're going to replace it,
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, because I think we need to have replacement policies for all of our properties.
yes, we do.
And we need to increase the fees or whatever we're getting so we can take replacement cost out every month and put it into a special account, capital account, to repair our facilities.
Yes, we do.
That's what I'm trying to get to here.
Yes.
Aday, we've got Councilmember Tran who'd like to say something.
Can I go back to SCORE?
Okay.
Did I hear you said that our budget for SCORE is about $7 million?
By the time we add the 680,000,
So within a year, they increased the cost almost 10%. Did we ask them why?
yes. Because the cost for them too is going up. The way they calculate the cost is from the big, say for example, the next year budget, 2019, what they would do is take the average daily population of our inmates from April of last year through the end of March of 2018. Whatever that ADP is what they will ask us to pay in 2019. So, and about a couple of years ago, a lot of us, actually, the mayor asked us that we need to manage the ADP, and the ADP came down. But everybody did the same thing. All the partners also did the same thing. Yes, our ADP was high, so were the neighbors. When our ADP went down, so was their ADP. You know, yes, about 10%. And actually, about 3 years ago, instead of 680, it actually went up about 1 million in 1 year. So we think for 2019, most likely, and I think a part of what I'll discuss on this next slide is to seriously manage the ADP. We think that for 2019, if we're able to keep our ADP at about 70 or below, there will not be a major increase to what it is.
Just, Councilmember Tran, just so you know, one of the budget requests that was made as we were looking at the mid-biennial adjustment was made by Aday and the or the police personnel to actually add an FTE, an employee, to manage ADP, to actually have somebody whose sole responsibility will be to do that. Because we have staffing issues, I made the decision that we're not going to add another employee at $70,000 to $80,000 a hit to our budget. We're going to have that managed through the police department, and the chief has actually drafted a memorandum on our current status and our strategy on making sure that we get a hold of this, because as I think you were rightly concluding, that's a shocking number, and it cannot, that number will eventually derail our budget if we keep getting that kind of increase.
Right.
It's $750,000,
Right.
just about.
So would it safe for me to say one way to reduce our costs to SCORE is to maybe perhaps explore alternative sentences?
And that's what I was just going to get into.
right.
Unfortunately, our SCORE people are usually sent, because they've gone through our courts, and have been found guilty of something and are sentenced to something, and we've been sending them to SCORE. Before that, we used to take them over to Yakima.
Right.
And I think now it would be cheaper to go back to Yakima.
Yeah, we're exploring some legal options.
But that's one of the problems. You know, we've talked to the courts about it, and the courts, of course, are very defensive of their right and what they do. And so, you know, we're trying to get them to cooperate with us a little bit, because the SCORE was this agreement with 5 cities, I believe originally, wasn't
Right.
it, Ms. Mayor?
Yeah.
And it was supposed to reduce our cost of having to travel back and forth to Yakima with people that were sentenced to a month or more in jail.
That's
And
right.
unfortunately, it hasn't worked that way.
In our municipal court, you know, our 2 judges actually are really, they're with community court, which has just begun, and some alternative sentencings, and at electronic home detention. They are exploring those. We've got, you know, Judge Larson, as the presiding judge, has been very aggressive about pursuing alternative custody.
Sentencing.
There are certain things, though, domestic violence, DUIs, certain things that are just, there are just certain people that need to go to jail, and that need to go to jail for safety purposes. Councilmember Honda, or Deputy Mayor Honda?
Thank you. Judge Larson, about a year ago, analyzed who is in SCORE and why they're there, and reported to the council. And he spent about 3 days working on that, 24 hours a day. I mean, he was very aggressive in trying to get that done for us. And the bottom line is, if you're at SCORE as a prisoner, you're there because of an agreement between your attorney, the defense attorney, the prosecutor, and yourself. It's an agreement. And if they say that they want you to be there for 4 weeks, he doesn't feel that he should back down to 2 weeks, because they have decided what they should do. So they are trying hard to manage the ADP on their side, but they also have to keep the city safe.
That's right. Yeah, it's a fine line, and it really is, you know, there are certain people that are in misdemeanor court. You know, this is actually, the budget squeeze has occurred all the way along, and at the King County Prosecutor's Office, one of the things they did is they've moved low-level drug offenses, property crimes that used to qualify for felonies down to the municipal level. So you're getting things that used to be in the Superior Court at the municipal court level. But that's something, maybe what we can do is have it's a great comment about Judge Larson's work. Maybe we'll get you get everybody that memo that Judge Larson had put so much work into. All right. Ade?
So how do we remedy this? Immediately remove the cap on admission tax. When the council passed the admission tax in 2016, is to be able for it to be 5% with maximum of 60 cents. So what we're asking is to have everyone pay that 5%. Who will this affect the most? It will affect Performing Arts Center. It will affect Wild Wave. I was just talking to our director of Performing Arts Center. More than 75% of people that are buying tickets now are outside of Federal Way. So assessing them the full 5% is assessing some of these people that are coming. Not that we want to discourage them, but we want to raise enough revenue to serve the residents of Federal Way. And the same thing with, I don't know the number for Wild Wave, but I assume the same thing will go for Wild Wave. Majority of the people that are coming there are from outside the area. So levying the full 5% will make sense. Delay the hiring of 5 new police officers until July. So the 5 police officers that you've accepted the COP grant for, we're suggesting, in order to get through this hurdle of 2018, to delay hiring them till July. That way we'll be able to save about $155,000. For the COP grant, they will fund about 40% of the cost. And that is why, yes, we'll be able to survive 2018, but the long run, the COP grant is for 3 years. And after that, we will be paying the full amount. Extend the useful life on the police car from 5 years to 7 years. Currently, most of our cars are depreciated over 5 years and try to replace them over 5 years. So I'm suggesting if we delay them or spread them over 7 years, our contribution to the replacement reserve will have to be lower annually. That will also save us additional $104,000. Adjust park staff level pending the time the business increases. Yes, I think we want Performing Arts Center to be successful, and it will succeed. I think as part of our downtown redevelopment, I think we're rebuilding our home for people to come in. So, but what we're saying now is before we are fully having, constant events, that we will slow down some of the costs a little bit. And that will save us about $71,000. Use the fund balance to absorb the $300,000 difference. So based on the $71,104 to $155,218, out of $850, I'm still short about $300,000. I'm also asking you to allow us to use $300,000 from reserve fund balance to absorb the difference. But based on your policy, if I come to you to use the fund balance, I'm also supposed to provide how to replenish that fund balance. And it must be replenished over a 3-year period. And that is where the long-term funding comes along. You cannot use fund balance or one-time spending to support your annual operation. Levy for 7.75 utility tax on Lake Haven. Utility tax is now new to Federal Way. We currently have utility tax on all the other utilities. So what we're saying is make it equal for all the providers of utility services to Federal Way. And down the road, I will show you, I think you have some of your residents actually that are served by Tacoma now, and they pay utility tax to Tacoma. But I'll show you that later. If we're able to do that, that will be about $980,000. Number 7, managed core ADP. We need to get on top of this ADP. We need to get on top of this average daily population. And like Mayor explained, he has decided that we'll use his staff, one of the police officers, to be able to work with the court, prosecuting attorney, defense attorney, and the mayor's office so that we can coordinate and manage this ADP. It cannot be done by just the police or just the court or just the prosecuting attorney or just the defense attorney. It has to be done by the entire group. So by having one person responsible for that, that will make that workable. Charge nonprofit organization with 5 or more employees a business registration fee. Well, yes.
What's that based on, the business registration fee?
The business registration, actually, what I'm hoping for there is to go, the hospital, they hire thousands of employees. We still want to excuse the nonprofit with 10 or less employees. So for those nonprofit, we will charge them the same fee that we charge regular businesses. So, and I think that will...
No, I'm trying to figure out, if you have 20 or 30 or 40 people, is it a head tax that you charge or what?
Yes, we base it on head count.
And how many, and what is that?
I don't know on top of my head.
Okay, if you could just send that to me
Okay,
later. I
absolutely.
appreciate that. Thank you.
We broke it down by, 0 to 5, 5 to 10,
Yeah.
11 to 20, and I'll send that fee out.
Yeah. If that could go to all of us, I think that'd be helpful to look at.
Okay.
Thank
Dave,
you.
can you do that?
Certainly.
Okay. Councilmember Kopang?
Now, a day, we're obviously just discussing this.
Yes.
But the head count, I think, was similar to what we talked about with regular businesses in Federal Way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would we be basically incorporating similar fees for the I mean, is that what you're proposing?
That is what we'll bring forth to you, yes. To say, well, if you have a nonprofit that has 1,000 employees, that nonprofit will pay fees equivalent of what regular business that has 1,000 employees pay.
And
And
besides,
we will exempt nonprofit that has 10 employees or less.
yeah, I know there's some, I mean, churches, as an example, are tax exempt. Are you proposing levying a tax or levying a business fee on churches?
Most churches will not have 10 employees.
Well, you're talking 5 here.
Okay. That is what I put in there initially when we sent
Okay.
that out. And I think we can revise this based on what the council
Yeah, I
desire.
think, I have a real problem with this, and I think I spoke to you about that.
Okay.
That I think 5 is a low number.
Okay.
And I think we need to be very careful about this discussion, and I'm concerned that
Okay,
introducing it
absolutely.
in this manner
Okay.
creates a perception that
Okay.
I don't think the council would support anyway. So
Okay.
that's,
We can do something about, I think what I'm proposing is big. The hospital, I mean, for some of us that have gone there, I mean, they have highly paid doctors, highly paid, nurses. I think they should help us share in the burden, but I totally agree with you in terms of our churches, in terms of our nonprofit that are maybe, we have to come up with the bottom line.
yeah, I'm certainly not going to allow this to be the poison pill. We can take it off the table if you
Absolutely.
don't like it.
Okay.
But I noticed that you didn't associate any revenue goal with this particular item. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah. Actually, when I first put this out, I think using the 5, and I think I got that feedback from some of you, I was just hoping of just charging $80. And that is where the 18,000 or whatever that came up. But again, even though the vision was to go after the big corporation, and with the big corporation, if we were to charge them the regular fees that we charge others, the amount will actually be close to 80,000.
Okay.
Councilmember Tran, then the Deputy Mayor.
I agree with Councilmember Copan. For the amount of money that potentially we can collect, $18,000, and we turn around and make this 229 businesses and agencies, nonprofit, to pay for a fee, they are here to provide services to our residents. And for us to turn around and ask them to pay, even though it's only $80, but it's symbolic that I think for $18,000, I would prefer not to take this route.
Absolutely. I think, like I said, at the beginning, when I first proposed this, I was hoping to just charge $80. So I think after the discussion with most of you, so what I will probably, for different discussion that I'll bring forth, is to charge those bigger corporations, based on the fee, but exclude, the vulnerable that, yes, you're right, that will be serving the community. Maybe to be those that have 200 employees or more, whatever that is.
All right. Deputy Mayor Burbridge, Deputy Mayor Honda.
I'm going to put a sign right here.
That's right.
It's going to be a long night. When I first saw the charge the nonprofits, the $80, you and I discussed that. I have just renewed, as the co-president of the Noon Kiwanis Club, our business registration, and was not charged. And I was concerned that we would be charging these groups who don't have, $80 is a lot of money for some of us.
Yep.
And I'm glad that we have adjusted it and that we're having the discussion.
Yep.
So, thank you for listening to us.
Yep, certainly.
All right. Councilmember Cephedos. Oh, and Councilmember Cephedos and then Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. So my first question is to go back to the first bullet point, the first point.
Okay.
The cap on it.
Immediately remove the cap on admission tax.
I'm wondering, is it possible to probably have like 2 price points? Like Renton does, the residents pay a different fee than the people who come from other cities?
We could do that, but keep in mind that will have so much administrative issues. If these days people buy their ticket online, so the way you'll be able to verify their residency is either by looking at the driver's license, or you reprogram. We often use a third-party administrator for card, so for them to look at where the card owner's address is. But administration of selecting these probably will be a little bit hard. It is doable, but it will be hard. And that means if you do that, and that is fine, that means some of the other ones are must do, because that is actually also part of how we got here. Because when we were setting the admission tax, we took TBD off the table, we took something over 60 cents off the table, and that is how we got here. Yes, it is doable, but that means some of the other means you will have to levy them.
Are you done?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
First of all, Ade, I appreciate you being here and also the community, because I understand this is a big issue and we want to be able to maintain our level of services that the community expects. One question I had is on the B&O tax. Is there, in your research, is there any tax for on the profit that's made, so like a profit-based tax is one question I have in particular. And then also, can you provide us, at some point, this is aside from this, but can you provide us the numbers we're spending on overtime as a city and the potential of a cap on overtime? Because I understand that's also a large percentage of the budget as well.
Okay, certainly.
Could I?
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. Good job.
Practice makes perfect.
I just want to say, when we bought tickets for a $50 ticket at the PAC at Christmas time, we only paid, there were several additional fees that we paid in addition on that ticket. The admissions tax was only 60 cents.
Yep.
And it seemed to me it was the lowest fee that we paid out of all the fees that we were paying in addition to the cost of the ticket. So I would be in favor of having one overall fee, not dividing it between resident and non-resident.
Yep. Absolutely, and I think that is the same thing for the movie theater. Is for most of the residents, and they're the ones that are paying the maximum 5%. Based on what I just told you, only about 22% the attendants at Performing Arts Center are from Federal Way. So the 78, you are reducing their fees. So they are actually paying less than 5%. So I think I totally agree. The next one is lead lift on property tax, which I think needs to be done, but this is not something that can be done in 2 years or 3 years. It needs to be a part of the long term, because I think because it requires the vote of the citizens, I think we need to be able to get the word out and actually do a lot of educational session for the citizens in order for this to pass.
And let me just stop for a moment. The reason why we're doing this right now is we haven't even begun the planning for our 2019 and 20 biennial budget, but we'll need to address this before we even get into that. So the first piece of this is to address the structural imbalance and the fact that we have been, out of the past 12 years, 11 of those years, our property tax rate has been the lowest among our neighboring communities. And we have been under-taxed. Our structural imbalance is such that the course correction needs to take place now before we even take a look at the 19 and 20. So we're going to be having biennial budget process that's going to kick off starting in the summer. So we'll have to take a look for other revenue sources, perhaps down the road in that cycle. But this is what's recommended at this stage. All right, Council, any other questions? We do have one pink sheet by a member of the public. Councilmember Kopang.
Day, getting back to number 8, I obviously in our private meeting had some heartburn with that particular item, but I did give you an alternative. I was just curious, have you looked into the possibility of fees for storage units?
Yes.
And-
Actually, that was, I think, the way we will be able to go after that will also be a good option. Based on our business registration today, is based on head count. So for storage, you cannot do it based on the head count. It will have to be based on square footage.
Yes.
And I think, yes, we will be bringing some proposals. I've put out some information requests to some of my colleagues to see how much how
Yeah.
to charge.
Council, we've got about 40 minutes, and what I want to do is actually, I realize we're only about halfway through your presentation.
Yes.
So why don't we do, Council, if you've got a question, why don't you write it down?
Yep.
Let's push through this, get it done, and anybody who in the audience who wishes to provide a comment, fill out a pink sheet, but let's use our 40 minutes wisely. Go ahead, Ade.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Mayor Farrell, I just wanted to say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
though. I think we only get one chance to make a first impression, and I'm concerned that number 8 in particular is a bad impression
Okay.
for us as a council. It's not our recommendation. I want the community to understand that. It's an idea. We did not come up with this, though.
Okay.
And we'll look at other options, certainly, but I have a lot of challenges with us looking at taxing nonprofits. I think the hospital is a great example of an organization that provides a lot of services to our community at no charge. They are a community partner. And I know there's a lot of other organizations that do that as well that are nonprofits. So again, I think this is a bad path for us as a city.
Okay, and that brings up a really good point. Thank you, Councilmember Kopang. These are just proposals, especially those last few, the property tax and the possible fee on the nonprofits. This study session we do not have anything on this agenda to address this package. At the next City Council meeting on March 6th is when we'll be putting on the agenda these items. But the purpose is to gauge the support of the council, to have a discussion, and the public as well. Okay, Ade.
The impact of the changes for admission tax, tickets that cost more than $12 will see the increase. $15 ticket will increase by 75 cents. A $50 ticket will increase by $2.50. And the same thing under the utility, 7.75 on a $60 bill is about $4.65. On a $40 bill is $2. And also, the city has utility tax rebate program where we do a refund. We've been doing these for so many years. Here's an example of a current utility bill from Lake Haven. And I'm saying for this, if the water is $37.30, so for a bill of this amount, we're looking at $2.89, and the sewer, that is about $49.53. The utility tax on this will be $3.84. The same thing, actually, this particular one is for this building, and again, that is for 2 months. So utility tax on a $454 bill, that would be about $35.19. On $457, that would be $35. So our bill will go up for every other month about $71. So the same thing here, where the utility bill is $650, and the utility tax will be $50.45. Where the sewer is $525, the utility tax will be $40.69, with a total of $91. This is the city of Tacoma, and as I mentioned earlier, there are some of our residents that are served by the city of Tacoma. So this is a bill for this actually through February 5th of this month. Right here is the Tacoma Water. And they are charging hydrant service fee, which our residents do not pay. The city directly pay the hydrant fee. And here is the utility tax, which is called Tacoma gross earning at 8%. So for this individual, that is $4.54. So for some of our residents that are being served by Tacoma Water, they are already paying this. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we have utility tax rebate. Who is eligible for this? We put this information out annually. So if a household of one that makes an income of $33,600, whatever utility bill that they pay, that comes to the city of Federal Way for the entire year, we refund it. So for a household of two, the income is $38,400. Household of three, $43,200. Household of four, $48,000. And for anything over five, we suggest that they call us. So we already have rebate program for some of our residents that this may create such a hardship for. Part of why we need this is the city's property tax rate. Just to be clear, this is the portion that you levy. When the residents see their property tax rate, it's usually maybe about $12 to $1,000 or $13, but the one that you are responsible for, the one that the city levies, is this. So for 2017, if you compare us to all of these residents that are hiring our employees away, this is where they stand. How did we get here? Over the years, because we did not take the rate that we're supposed to take, we didn't. But nonetheless, our residents are enjoying a great deal of lower property tax. So for SeaTac 2.89, Seattle 2.62, Renton 1.61, Burien 1.36, Auburn 2.19, Kent 1.41, and Federal Way 1.13. And this is our property tax rate for the past 11 years.
And the highlighted is the lowest?
The yellow is the lowest for every year. If you compare the city of Federal Way, out of those years, only 2007 that we didn't come the lowest. And that is still 1.14 to 1.10. So since 2006, and from 2008 to 2017, we are the lowest. Again, for an average citizen, for each dollar that they pay in property tax, this is the portion that comes to the city of Federal Way. About 8 cents on every property tax that they pay. Only 8 cents for 2017. Here's what the county still gets. About 10 cents. Here's water, fire, and EMS, about 15 cents. And of course, the state and the school district. What affects the citizens' property tax amount that they pay and the city's revenue is the rate times the value of the property. in 2018, and this is information put out by King County, except SeaTac, City of Federal Way has the lowest median property value. So you combine the lowest median with the lowest rate, you have the lowest total property tax revenue. SeaTac that has the lowest, SeaTac also has how many hotel buildings? There are 7-story buildings. So they are now really short of money from some of those hotels. I've heard the question, oh yeah, maybe if you didn't build a park and all of that, maybe, well, part of building the park is to resuscitate our downtown, is to be able to bring businesses into downtown, is to be able to improve the value of properties in downtown so that when those properties are well built, they can pay higher tax rate because they are 5-story, they are 6-story building. So you can have more property tax per square footage. So by doing that, we hope the park will increase the value of downtown, as I mentioned, and bring people. Again, based on what I just said, only 22% are from Federal Way. So the 75% that are coming in, you want to provide them some place to spend their money. The 78 that are coming from outside Federal Way, you want to provide them a place to eat, a place to shop, and usually when people come, they come on a date. A place to buy simple gift. That is what the Performing Arts Center is doing, and that is what we need to build around it to make our downtown sustainable. The mayor's recommendation is to say, okay, to do the admission tax, utility tax, based on what I'm hearing, you know, we may shelve the business registration. And the mayor has authorized this. These are some things that do not, again, this is just to show you that we've done a lot of homework before bringing this to you. Has authorized delaying the hiring of 5 police officers until July. Yes, authorized extending the useful life on the patrol vehicles to 7 years. Suspend the hiring, you know, of the park staff position to save 71 or rearrange so that we can save that 71,000. And as Mayor just said earlier, to coordinate, to have a police officer coordinate the SCORE ADP with the courts, prosecutors, defense attorney, and with the finance and mayor department. And that is the end of my presentation.